Hi, Holland. How are you today? I'm Sophia with the Nerds of Color.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk with me about your new series, Mayans M.C, which,
Yeah.
by the way, you're doing so great, and I'm so glad to see you as part of the cast.
Oh, yeah, it's been fun. It's been just an honor to be a part of that kind of family at that caliber, and the actors I get to work with, and working for Elgin James it was like a little dream of mine. So I'm really grateful.
Amazing. Well, you led us into our first question beautifully. So what was it like for you, that first day of set joining the family? And were you a fan of it previously?
Yeah, I think that Sons of Anarchy was beautifully executed, and when I met Sarah Bolger, she is I play her sister on the show. She is such a gem, and we've become quite close. Like, she's just a breath of fresh air in my life at this point in time, and so it's been a lovely on-screen experience. Watching Sarah and Danny work. That's primarily who I work with, but as well as off screen. It's been, everyone keeps like saying, how is mine? How's mine? It's really easy, guys. You just show up, and I don't really carry hardly any of the load on my end. So I have it easy, but the few easy days I go to work, they're a joy.
Nice thing to hear, though, that it's just so easy to fit in and kind of play your role. What originally drew you to the role of Aaron, and how did you sort of prepare for it? Was there anything specific you did?
I'm from Texas. That's where I'm actually am right now, is in my parents' farmhouse. I have always held like certain demeanors really close to my heart, and parts of like maybe inland California or parts near the border of California are not all that different from like a small town in Texas. And so some of the sass that people watch, I observe, and some of the perhaps ego, and you're not afraid to get in someone's face, that it's a character for me that I've grown up with in my life, just on the daily. So getting to play that kind of role, I'm much more timid in real life, and a bit more demure, but I love those characters. And so when I got to actually, I've auditioned for those kinds of characters a plethora of times. I've gotten really close a plethora of times, but this was the first time that I was like, oh, great, good. I get to play. This role is mine. So yeah, I was just excited because I've had false starts of this kind of person for a long time, and then getting to play off Sarah, who has this very stark, stoic demeanor about her. Being the willy-nilly coming in was, it was fun. Yeah.
If you can describe season 3 in 3 emojis, which would you pick and why?
Season 3 in 3 emojis. Unpredictable. I want to say intense, but that's obviously a given. So I would say unpredictable, vulnerable, and unpredictable, vulnerable, and violent. Sure.
How would you describe the world of Mayans MC as a total, since we are on season 3, to those who haven't seen it, to kind of intrigue them to sit down and binge?
Right. So this is about a motorcycle club, but a different motorcycle club than Sons of Anarchy. And they're a motorcycle club that takes place in Mexico as well as the States. And so it's about a lot of the business and the kinds of product that are moved between, let's say, the illegal product that are moved between Mexico and California and Texas and Arizona, Nevada. And so it's a business at the end of the day, and it's a black market business. It's not obviously a legal business, but this is about, it's sort of has that Breaking Bad kind of feel. And I don't want to give too much away if you haven't seen the show at all, but it's It's about a man named Easy, and he was on the right track at a certain point in his life, and things went awry, and now he's trying to put his life back together. And why he's interacting with the Mayans, with the motorcycle club. There's a reason behind that, and it's just, you never know who's good and bad and what their intentions are. And so yeah, if you like motorcycle clubs, and if you like romance and unpredictable violence, then this show would be for you. It's definitely a high energy show. There's something going down at every beat.
And I love what you said too about never knowing who's good and bad, because those make the best shows when you're like sitting there on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, it reminds me of I loved Breaking Bad. Like, that was one of my favorite shows. And so it has a lot of that same tone to it, in the sense that, you know, there's a polarizing between good and bad, right? Like, you know, someone's not all of one thing. And how much can you rationalize what they're doing if this is somebody that you care about and like, and you're rooting for? So
the complexity,
a lot of that too.
Yeah. And I imagine those are the roles that are like more fun to play for you guys as actors, is the ones that are like teetering on good or bad and very complex. And it's like, you never know the turn for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I just saw this movie about, what is it? Again, I'm not going to pronounce it correctly. It was a Bosnian town that there was a genocide in 1995. And again, I wouldn't pronounce the title correctly, but it was like, Calvita Aida. It's like, where are you going, Aida? And you know, they would put these incredibly cruel dictators, these Hitler-esque characters, Maldlik, you know, and he murdered 8,000 Bosnian men and sons, essentially, men and boys. And you know, they would show him with moments of sympathy, but you knew that sympathy wasn't real. But he was very convincing at his sympathy. And so as a movie, and I think the movie was pretty accurately told about this genocide, it was so creepy as a character, even though this person was obviously a real human. Watching a monster be kind it's almost scarier than when they're scary. So that's, yeah, one thing I took away. One thing I sort of tied back to Mayans watching that movie.
Are there any sort of fun memories you can share from filming?
Gosh, they're very professional. You get on set and do your thing. I think the funny thing is, I was eating in a lot of my scenes. I probably had my biggest, you know, coworker aside from Sarah was food. That I've had in my career. And so the Master Pineapple was like, another food scene, Holland. And so that poor man, shout out to Pineapple. I should do like a dedicated post to that man. And I probably will, because he was so fun. And that he always, I feel like Aaron's a very tactical person, and he let me run with that. And half those scenes were not food oriented necessarily. And then half of them were scripted as food scenes. But we just went ahead and made like most of my scenes food scenes, where I'm just constantly like shoving something in my mouth as almost a distraction. And so that was fun. And Pineapple, there was always a food problem where, you know, you don't want to be the recurring that comes on the show and it's like causing, you know, more problems than set can already have. And so I was like, but yeah, it was fun to, like, one was too crunchy and crumbly, so like it wasn't really chewable to see. Like we don't need a granola, we need like a you know, a Cheerio. And then there was like an organic muesli, and they're like, what a baby, because I'm eating the baby's food, you know, picking it up off the counter. It's like, but does the baby eat that? So the things you have to think about with food scenes are, they're like working with, you know, babies and animals. It's just like really bizarre to work with food. But
that's pretty funny, honestly, to hear you talk about that. Like the thought that even has to go into the little details, such as the food you're eating in a scene.
yeah.
Because when you're watching it, you don't like, oh, I'm just going to grab the baby food, I'm just going to grab a banana. And it's not like you're thinking in your head, oh wait, this might have crumbs, this might have this might have a
Yeah.
crunch. That's
Yeah,
actually
I
really
just did a
funny.
movie in July where the man takes a sip of his beer and he's supposed to have like a mustache that I'm supposed to like laugh and wipe off from the foam. But in reality, we didn't have like a proper keg that was foaming correctly. And then the foam that we could conjure up wasn't creating the mustache. And so we had to put foam soap on top of the beer so that he would drink the beer, but he was like getting soap in his mouth.
Soap in his mouth.
It was, yeah. And then we were like, can we just have him drink the beer, cut to me, and then cut back to him? We'll have put the foam and he'll have just finished drinking the beer. So he doesn't actually have to put the, soap in his mouth. So yeah, I mean, there could be a book written on food eating in, for acting. It's really funny.
The crazy small details that audiences would have no idea, honestly.
No, I wouldn't have any idea unless I lived it. Yeah.
What was it like shooting this during a pandemic? Obviously, I'm sure it was very different from everything you've had to do. And then what sort of safety precautions were taken for you guys?
Thankfully, this was not my first project during the pandemic. The pandemic was a movie that I shot in July. And so when I came on the Mayan set, I was sort of like, I got this, but going on that movie in July, I was extremely nervous. I kept thinking, oh, any moment they're going to shut this down. And I was actually coming in from out of town and having to get on a plane. So that's added complication. And so, and I was coming from a project across the country that wasn't entertainment related, but was dedicated to that. So it was a tricky situation. So most of my jitters, I got out on that project. And once I came on Mayans, I was ready and comfortable. And I knew what it was like to rehearse with those masks on. I'm a big mask wearer. Why not? Like, throw it on. It doesn't hurt anybody, literally. I just got vaccinated. We're able to in California and Texas. And even after I get vaccinated, fully, you wear the mask. And so the one time that I have, like, it gets to me, like, it actually really bothers me, is during rehearsal, because you can't see people's faces. The director can't see your face. And not until action did those masks come off. And so the protocol was very strict. And I think everybody got called out at least once, because the director wants to run in and talk to you or give you notes, and it's just the last thing on our minds. And then as soon as the camera starts rolling, even back in July when I was super scared to be on a set, that I wasn't so worried with myself, but you're more worried of who you can give it to. And yeah, I mean, that's when I was nervous. But once action is called, you really do forget what's going on in this world, and you're just focused on the scenes. So that's the nice saving grace. But rehearsals were really tough. Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine it almost adds a different layer for you, because in rehearsal, you're used to seeing everyone's expressions, and expressions are such a huge part of the scene and acting. So when you take those masks off for action, it's like you're almost seeing it for the first time as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it's the most challenging. I mean, obviously for the actors, but for the director, because he or she can't see what's happening in that scene until there's the first take is really when that person can assess what they want to change or what they like and don't like. So yeah, it was very frustrating, but that's cost of doing business right now. So you have to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
At least we're able to still make entertainment.
Yeah.
That's what,
I'm really happy that we could go back to work now. And it's, it's been nice. And you do, like I said, it's like the first project back, it's always nerve-wracking. And then after that, you're good. So I thankfully was good when I came on Mayans, but they've done a great job. Yeah.
How would you say this series stands out compared to your past projects?
I think this is more of a serious project as compared to my other television work. I think I usually am in sci-fi, more or less, or folklore. And so this was the first time that more or less, I did do a pilot that didn't get picked up that was a lot of fun and dark comedy and very different. And there was a show I did before Teen Wolf that was of that same genre. But this one, I've never been in a show where I think the stakes are this high, storyline wise. And I feel like I'm dealing with real stories, even though these are obviously fictionalized storylines. There's something just very visceral about the Mayans world that I felt more of a responsibility to play versus characters that are a bit more fantastical or based in more of a fantasy world. I don't know. I guess I would say there's perhaps a bit more of a responsibility with Mayans than I've felt in the past.
No Escape came out last year, and I have to take a minute to compliment you because it was so fantastic. You
Which
did
one?
such No Escape.
Oh,
Oh
thank
my
you.
gosh, you did such a fantastic job in that film. It was so,
Thank you.
so good. My
Thanks.
whole family, we made it our movie night. It was great.
Oh, thank you.
It was
Yeah,
so good.
Keegan Allen killed it. I don't know if you were a fan of Pretty Little Liars back in the day,
Yes.
but
You
mhm.
two, I was so excited to see you two working together, honestly,
Yeah.
because I'm a fan of PLL, I'm a fan of Teen Wolf. How could you not be? And I was like, both of you on screen, you two worked so well together. So fingers crossed you
Oh,
guys do something in the future because you guys made
it
a good
was
duo.
fun. It's funny with I listen to Smartless, the podcast. I don't know if you check out. Yeah, I'm obsessed with Smartless, and they they've touched on it several times with some of their guests. And sorry for the mess back here. My mom's
Oh no,
redecorating,
please.
um, as you do when you're empty nesters, I guess. But yeah, it was you always have your life on the movie, like what you see in the movie, and then where your life was filming that project. And so No Escape was one of those that was super small. The budget was tiny. It was down the street from my house, where everything else, you have to go on 6 planes to get to, and 4 different time zones. And yeah, you just got in your car. It was, I think the project went for like 5 weeks, and I was like 3 of the weeks. And so it was so easy, and the cast was so lovely. I mean, Ronan and Amelia, I mean, all of them, everybody was, and George was just hilarious, and see it. So it was a fun time. It was such an easy set to go to. Always jokes being cracked up between, takes, and all of our dressing rooms were right together, and the stage was right next to the dressing rooms. It was just a tiny setup. Will was lovely. It was a really fun memory. It was a fun time in my life. And you never know what's going to happen with, especially these, smaller budget movies, but I was excited that they got on Hulu, and it did quite well for them on Hulu. And yeah, it was fun. It was really fun. Yeah.
Honestly, you would have never been able to tell as a viewer watching that it was a small budget. It looked like this like
They did a
big
great job,
production.
right?
You guys did an amazing job. It looked like, oh my gosh, I would have loved to see that in the theater. Like I loved having the movie
Oh,
night at home, but like that would have been one of those theater experiences.
you're so sweet. Yeah, they did a great job. Set design was killing it. I had nothing to do with that part. We just showed up. But no, they did a great job. They really pushed their dollar pretty far. But yeah, no, that was very low budget. And I have a movie coming out at Sony that's of a similar topic that had 3 times the budget or 4 times the budget. So they did a great job. I was really proud of them. And yeah, the whole group, like we all talk still, for such a small movie and such a short time in our lives. It really has made a lasting impact on all of us, I think, and in that we all still communicate and are friends. Mm-hmm.
I have to ask you because that movie, that ending, what was your reaction when you read that ending, when you shot that scene?
Yeah,
Insane.
I would say, it was because of Teen Wolf, essentially. I do get a number of scripts that are in that genre. And I always say, I don't care what the genre is. If the script is good, then it's worth it. I mean, look at movies like Get Out. And so, or Mother, I know Mother has mixed reviews, but I loved Mother. So yeah, when I read the script, it was really original, and my manager read it first and said, I think this one's worth checking out. And it was, it doesn't matter the budget, it doesn't matter the genre. If it's a unique script you don't read every day, then that's what piques your interest as an actor. And this one was that. And so I loved that. It also felt, although it's more of a fantasy world than Mayans, it did feel like this could be a movie that could happen with these crazy YouTubers. Yeah. It almost felt like something that could happen. And yeah, that's where, I really liked that it wasn't really based in horror. It was based in more of the social space and what's taking it too far, obviously. And especially with these like TikToker Gen Z, I mean, their identity is through social media. They don't identify as themselves, they identify as their profiles. And so I thought that was a great reflection of that through the eyes of horror. Mm-hmm.
On the Escape the Room films as well, because there's so many of them, but it was adding that unique spin. Are you someone who goes into an escape the room and you're taking charge, or are you like, oh no, escape the rooms are not for me?
So I think they started in Vienna. I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure they did. And I became obsessed with escape rooms because I'm the activity girl. Like put me in, clay shooting or horseback riding or, paintballing. Like I love stuff to do. And I'm not the like sit on the beach and tan kind of person by my very bad pasty complexion. So with my mom and my best friend and her mom went to Vienna before she got married, and sort of Eastern Europe, we hadn't done any. None of us had been to Eastern Europe, so we did Hungary and then we did Austria, and they had escape rooms in Austria because they were the first ones that had them. But it was like 110 degrees. They were going through this heat wave, literally, and there's no air conditioning in Vienna traditionally. And so we're in this escape room for the first time. It's one of the first escape rooms that's ever been put together. And it's like, we're literally wanting to escape because it's in this basement of this building that is so hot in 100-degree. It was like nighttime and I think it was like 95. It was so hot. And so that was my first escape room experience, was literally truly wanting to escape. But I can't tell you the amount of birthdays that we've spent. Dallas and Winnipeg have surprised me. The more sort of like suburban, not a lot to do outside, you can shop and drink and eat kind of cities are the ones with the best escape rooms. And Winnipeg and Dallas are those. Winnipeg, I was filming something, and Dallas is where I'm from. And so I love the themes, like the lake. There was a lake house theme gone wrong in Dallas that had like multiple stories and ladders you climb up, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, in Winnipeg there was this, you put water down a drain and the message came up through the pipe of the sink. And so I'm a sucker for sets. I'm a sucker for gags. And then I love, like my little activities and games. So escape rooms are like my nirvana.
Yeah, I love the escape rooms you're going to. Yours sound crazy. I love it.
So Brandon Scott's an actor, an amazing actor that I worked with on Channel Zero, and he was like escape room king. Like I have not met someone better at solving escape rooms than Brandon Scott. So shout out to Brandon Scott. But a lot of my guy friends I grew up with here are like, I went to an all-girls school, and so the all-boys school, huge nerds to this day. And I guess no pun intended. Yeah, big nerds. And so yeah, they're decent at solving the escape rooms. I think there was like a 18% success rate on the lake house one, and we solved it. So yeah, it's fun.
I love it.
Huge fan.
So Teen Wolf ended back in 2017, which to me, I was like, oh my gosh, it's been that long. It's crazy.
It's very strange. Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane. I remember watching that finale. I was like, has it really been that long?
I think it was in like towards the end of 17. So it's like been 3.5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. But despite that, fans are still so passionate about the show and constantly just sharing their love for it on social media.
They think season 7's coming. And I'm like, guys,
Is season 7 coming, Holland?
I will be the first to say otherwise, but I don't think so. No, I'm just an actor. I always reiterate that, but Yeah, they always like to message us over and over. And it's like, guys, I don't own the show. Call MGM and MTV and Viacom. And I said that, and then they started tweeting at MTV and MGM, which was quite funny. Which
They
great.
love
That's who
it.
you should contact if you know, Veronica Mars got it going. So
They've gotten it trending too. They're like, they love it.
Oh,
And I don't blame them. It was fantastic. Like, I'm right there with them.
Jeff and the writers wrote an amazing show. I mean, I knew it was very special the moment I read that pilot. And at the time, MTV wasn't really doing scripted, and sort of the murmuring around the acting community was like, MTV's doing pilots, those are never going to go. Those are never going to be successful. And there was a lot of actors that wouldn't go out for them because it wasn't really taken seriously. And albeit our budget was always incredibly small, the marketing budget was very small. I think I heard something where $25 million was the Pretty Little Liars marketing budget, and we were $2.5 million for the marketing budget.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So,
Wow.
I mean, MTV, like, the fans found Teen Wolf, and they were really the ones that supported it, because we did not have that support within the industry. So that is really special to me, that there was no subliminal brainwashing going on with Teen Wolf, like where you're going to see it on a bus stop. I think we got Taxi Tops one year, and we were so excited that we got Taxi Tops in New York when we were doing press there one year. But yeah, we didn't do a ton of marketing for the show. Like I said, MTV did not do a lot of marketing. I just don't think there was the budget. So the fact that it was as big as it was in the running with a lot of those Vampire Diaries and Pretty Little Liars shows that were on much more established networks with huge marketing budgets, to me, that shows the loyalty of Teen Wolf fans and the fact that they really kept the show going.
Mm-hmm. Because I associate it with all the shows you said, Vampire Diaries, Pretty Little Liars, like those are what I associate Teen Wolf with. I think it's in the same category. It's really, it makes it more special though.
I know, and financially it was a completely different ballgame. So usually, just like with political elections, the more money you have, the further you go. And so the fact that we were able to stand amongst those giants financially and from a business perspective was, somebody should do a study on it, because it was actually quite miraculous. Yeah. I mean, that's why I really hold Teen Wolf fans so dear, even though they're crazy because there's no season 7. And they think it's like something I'm like, I'm just telling you the truth, guys.
Yeah.
They do not want to accept the truth. I understand that. But I really am so grateful for them, because they did something that most shows are not able to do with the budget we had. And it's because of the fans. Mm-hmm.
The only Teen Wolf question I have for you is, where do you think Lydia is right now? If you could create your like little dream scenario for her, where is she right now for you?
I've said this before, but I do believe this, that I joke that Styles and Lydia are finally getting paid for their services in Beacon Hills, because they did not. They did all that work for free. That they have their own detective agency, and Lydia probably as a side hustle was like solving, the COVID vaccine. She probably came out with the Johnson & Johnson one where you only needed one. She was not about wasting time. So those are my 2 jokes, that she was solving, she's finding the COVID vaccine but mostly running a detective agency with Styles. And are they together or not? No one knows,
That's the best though. I love how you phrased it, like they're finally getting paid after all these years of saving
they're risking their life for like almost 10 years free, because they spent, well, I guess real on TV time it was 4 years, but
a long time.
Yeah, exactly.
If you could revisit any of your past roles from any of your past shows and create your own little like dream storyline for that, like you were in charge of what they were doing next with the character, which role would you pick and what sort of storyline would you want to explore?
I actually want to say Erin on Mayans is the most questions I have for this character, because she rides the line of unpredictable and wild and wants that adventure and does not have the best decision-making skills and doesn't create the best relationships in her life. But there's still a heart inside of her. You can tell she really loves her sister. And I think due to time on Mayans, there's definitely been some jokes that got cut out where she's very snarky. And so I do wonder what happens to Aaron in the Mayans world, because there's so many worlds within Mayans. And yeah, I guess without saying too much, I wish that we'll see how many Mayans worlds she meets, but I would want to expand on that idea.
There we go. Instead of Teen Wolf trending, we can get an Aaron spinoff trending.
I don't know about a spinoff, but yeah, just where Aaron ends up can be very interesting. Yeah.
What sort of scenes or storylines challenge you as an actress?
I think ones with kids, maybe, because I don't have kids. And I think I'm more of an animal person.
I agree with you there.
Yeah, like I am so, I might be in the wrong business. I should be running some sort of sanctuary or shelter. And I do volunteer occasionally, well, back before this pandemic, with a place called the Gentle Barn. And I am the most conflicted meat eater, which I'm sure a lot of us are, because I absolutely blame my upbringing, and Texas is a big part of who I am, and the smoking of the meats and the barbecues and, you know, all the stuff that I wish I didn't do. So yeah, I would say scenes with kids, and dealing with kids. Scenes are so much. But yeah, some women get really excited about baby smell. I get really excited about freshly woken up dog smell in their ears. Like that is the best smell on the face of this earth. Like I smell my dog's ears. Any dog that's waking up for a nap, I immediately smell their ears. I don't even care if I know the dog or not. And they always have that like puppy smell, that pheromone, just like, oh, I crumble.
You're talking to a dog person, so trust me, I get you.
Yeah. I love all animals. Like there's not an animal, you know, even snakes and spiders are not my thing, but like I just truly, in fact, they blow my mind, every single animal. So yeah, but yeah, I would say kids and definitely challenge me. Mm-hmm.
Is there any sort of aspect of the entertainment industry that you want to try in the future?
Yes, it's so hard when, you know, people think like, oh, you're an actor, you can do anything you want. And the reality is I've always reiterated, like we're very low on the totem pole as a working actor. You know, I think when you're a movie star or you've amassed, you know, 50 million followers on social media, it might be different. But for the normal folk, like it is hard to break in, and you really need a lucky break or someone just giving you a chance. Essentially, it's like trying to make it all over again. And producing in particular for me is something that I've always been drawn to, as well as producing scripted and unscripted. I became like a little news junkie while on Teen Wolf, and a doc, I guess, I don't know if I would say connoisseur, but certainly a fan. And like social impact docs or outdoor docs, mountaineering docs, different kinds of, I love kayaking documentaries. Those are actually, I highly recommend one called Into Twin Galaxies. You don't really think about a kayaker's life, but you know, like the US team got kidnapped by the FARC in Colombia because they started in Brazil, and you know, the Amazon River runs through multiple countries. A river does not discriminate in what country it's in, and does not stop because there's a border. And you know, you don't really hear a lot about a kayaker's journey, and they carry their kayak on their back for tens and tens of miles sometimes. So try a backpack, try a kayak, you know, walking uphill and over, you know, rocky terrain. And so they do, and they also go off like, you know, huge waterfalls in these kayaks. And so the risk they take, the lifestyle they have, I don't think gets enough credit. So my goal is to highlight stories that either teach you something or open your eyes to something you didn't know existed. Those are my favorite kinds of stories to tell. And so I do tend to like based on true story type material. And I've acquired a couple things from a few different articles, but it's just about trying to get them made. And that's very difficult. Like you're back in the pool of unknown actor status, and it's tough because you're unknown producer status, and no one wants to give you that chance. So we'll see. TBD. They're pipe dreams until they're not, is what I say. But producing is something I am attempting at the moment, and we'll see if anything gets made from it. That would be my goal.
I hope to see it. I think you'd be great at it. That'd be really.
I think so too. I'm a very I am not the most willy-nilly actor. I'm very level-headed and very grounded in the sense that I was a pre-med major for 3 years in college until I switched to acting. And so for me, I love looking at budgets. I love looking at different parts of making a set work that are maybe not the most glamorous. Tracking down the IP is the hardest part, and dealing with the lawyers and trying to get a hold of the author. And, it's kind of a scavenger hunt for these people. And then to woo them and to get them to A, like you, and then B, trust you, and then C, give you their project or sell you their project is, as an unestablished producer, is incredibly difficult. And then having to do them right and try and get the project sold, it's tough. Yeah. But if given the chance, I do think I could potentially be good at all the different ins and outs of producing. Yeah.
Any new projects coming up that you can tease? I know you can't always talk about the new projects you filmed, but anyone's coming up, or stay tuned to social media to find out.
I have 2 movies coming out. I think I do know it's called Escape Room 2 is coming out. The Sony film is coming out in January of 22. I do believe that's final, but we'll see if that date changes, but hopefully that'll stay the same. It was supposed to come out this year, but got delayed because of the pandemic, and really grateful that they delayed it as much as they did because they want it to be in theaters. And, I'm truly so grateful for that, delaying it a whole year if that's the case. And I have a smaller movie coming out about a woman I play named Kathleen McChesney, and she was the woman that essentially caught Ted Bundy. And she was one of the first women. Clarice was loosely based on her from Silence of the Lambs. And she was one of the first women in the FBI. And she was one of the first women in the FBI because she started looking at people that were serial killing people. That term did not exist at the time. They were called sequence killers. And she was the first one to think of it from a psychological standpoint and profile them, essentially. Profiling didn't exist to the extent that she profiled Ted Bundy and caught him. And so she was part of the Seattle Police Department at the time. So sort of small potatoes to be catching this nationwide killer. And she was one of the people in the forefront to do that. So Kathleen McChesney, she's still around. She's running the division of the FBI in Los Angeles. And she was a short little redhead, and yeah, I got the opportunity to fill her shoes, and it is a Ted Bundy story. It's called American Boogeyman, but it's looking at it from the authorities' perspective, the police perspective of catching Ted Bundy.
I have to say, I'm really excited to see you do that role. That sounds really incredible, and I love seeing you.
Spitfire. Yeah,
and I love seeing you. Yeah. I love seeing you bring these strong females to life as well. Like all your roles, like I love to see it. It's really, really important.
It's been fun. The small and mighty, like Holly Hunter's always been a big mentor of mine. Yeah.
What do you think it needs to be worked on when it comes to representation in the film and television world?
I think, I personally think it starts with telling good stories. And I am really tired, it's one of the reasons I want to produce, of the same stories that are just remarketed, essentially. And I've had the pleasure of traveling quite a bit in my life, and also traveling solo as well. And I think that's really important, no matter who you are, man, woman, to travel by yourself. And I've traveled to different parts of Africa by myself and different parts of Asia by myself. I've not traveled that much in South America by myself or Central America, but there are so many stories that are out there and they're just not being told. And so it's one of my goals is, I have a story right now that was mostly took place in Zambia, and it's a great story. And it's not about, it's just organically telling stories that feature different kinds of people. And it's that simple. And that's what I believe in, is I believe in it coming from an organic place and telling stories that matter. And that's all that needs to be said. And there's change in that. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm glad to see that there has been a big shift with who's on TV, but I really am pushing for better stories and stories that, you just don't know of. I like taboo topics that we don't really, they're so taboo, we don't know anything about them, and therefore we don't learn anything about those industries. And Beasts of No Nation is a great example. Like child soldiers, you just hear child soldier or big game hunt, and you don't look past that term. And so there's real people in those industries, and if you can call it that, and what are their lives like? And that I find really interesting. I'm working with a film school in Azraq, Jordan, that it's one of the biggest film schools in a refugee camp, the longest running film school in a refugee camp. And I think it's really interesting to give stateless people essentially a chance to tell their stories. And you don't hear a lot of war films from a first-hand perspective. You hear it through the British or German or Dutch or American journalist. You don't hear it through their eyes. So CARE is a organization that built this very guerrilla run film school in Azraq, which houses 35,000 people within 10 square miles. And a lot of these kids will be graduating and going to university, but they're not, because they've been living in Azraq's refugee camp for essentially since 2011. And now we're going on 10 years. So it's tough. And this particular camp is not located, like in Lebanon. There's refugee camps that are so big that have merged and become their own cities. And this one can't, because it's out in the middle of nowhere. So I do believe there are really good stories to be told. And then that sentence in itself, the ones that are uncovered, if they're exposed, then if they've given a platform to tell those stories, we won't have a problem with diversity. Yeah.
It was a really beautiful answer. I just wanted to say that. It really was.
Yeah, people are just like, diversity. I'm like, well, I think it needs to come from better stories, guys.
Yeah.
Just
because
throwing it out there,
Yeah,
so that's really where I advocate.
Yeah, because honestly, you could have a diverse cast, but if you're not giving the people of color good storylines or telling their stories the way they need to be told, it doesn't help. You can throw it as a token character, but it doesn't work.
I personally don't believe that, and I believe in there's some other countries that do a better job of this, but we obviously are the leading entertainment industry in the world, and we're recycling so many stories, guys, and there's so many incredible stories. My favorite thing is to go to these mostly they're doc film festivals, but doc film festivals have the best IP, the best material out there. And articles. I mean, if you just dive into weird magazines or magazines from other places in the world, some of them I guess have moved online, but I think between traveling and smaller documentary film festivals, the amount of IP is the way I look at it, is how my brain thinks, is just, it's insurmountable. And there's stories that each one of them's got an Oscar lined up for it. I mean, they're incredible if it's told correctly. And so, yeah, I do believe it starts there. Or that's where it should start.
You do a lot of conventions. What does it mean to be able to speak to these fans of yours and sort of meet them and just really get to know their stories and, their how you've affected their lives. And has a fan ever said anything with you that has sort of stuck with you?
Hmm. I would say I wish a psychologist was coming with me on all of these trips, because there's not I don't know of a focus group essentially um, that you get to talk to over the last, I don't know, 5, 6 years, almost maybe even 8 now. Um, Thousands of little girls, essentially. I mean, and some little boys and some older women and some older men, but the majority of it is teenage girls. And those are such an impressionable type of human. And so to see from all over the world what are teenage girls talking about, what are their family dynamics, how many pets do they have, what are their insecurities, because they're essentially therapy sessions, they're group therapy sessions that I don't necessarily like the pictures and signing because it's just so robotic, and it's not, I know, I understand the memorabilia part of fandom, and that they want the tactical thing to walk away with. But for me, my favorite part is the meet and greets where you get to sit down with like between 10 and 40 girls, also people, because there's a lot of guys I don't want to discount, but you get to sit down with these mostly young people that have a lot to say. And I think it's so interesting. It's my time to kind of grill them and ask where they're from and what made them so obsessed with Teen Wolf that they're going to go buy a ticket and talk to us and travel for this and make this their outlet where they meet other friends. And it becomes, like I go to my doc film festivals as an outlet. This is what they're doing. It's the same thing. So they're really, this is, it's not necessarily about Teen Wolf as it is much about an outlet for them and their friends. And it becomes like their own summer camp vacation thing. So I find that interesting. And I find, I just love talking to them of usually, sometimes it's the parents aren't really that hands-on, and that's why they've become that obsessed with Teen Wolf. So unfortunately, the answer sometimes isn't the prettiest. But people are just doing the best they can. And it's really interesting to see what other people are, what are their aspirations? What do they want to do? And yeah, I would say that's probably the biggest takeaway I've brought from the conventions is just seeing these people's faces, and what an opportunity to sort of take inventory of why these people love the show and why they feel so connected to it. And then, hopefully finding that crux of why, and then saying, but a lot of it they've figured out themselves. They're making friends through this forum, this vehicle, and that's what they essentially wanted or needed. And so it's just interesting to see how Teen Wolf is the catalyst between a hard point in their life, or meeting new people, or getting out of their comfort zone, or they don't have as strong of a relationship with X, Y, and Z in their family, so they turn to Teen Wolf. Or what's really, really cool is when you're like, no, I watched this with my mom, or I watched this with my dad. Like, those bring me to tears, hearing that that's a way they can connect. Like, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So yeah, just definitely my biggest takeaway, or just the experiences of those people and what Teen Wolf did for them.
What is the biggest lesson you would say that a role or a project has personally taught you?
Oh gosh, I would just say acting in general is just such a blessing, in the sense that it makes you very self-aware as a human. And when you're potentially a lawyer, a doctor, or working in the financial industry, you're not forced to, if you're not a professional creative, where you have to sort of go there mentally about, being self-aware every day, or being told no constantly, where you have to then reflect upon yourself, which it's not usually you, it's just a high demand industry. And sometimes you can't help why it's a no. And most of the time you can't. And yeah, I would say it's a blessing in the sense that there's a silver lining in that hardship, in the sense that you get to take a hard look at yourself, and not a lot of industries challenge you like that every day. And it's really helped your like an emotional IQ in your own personal life, at least for me, in communications with my loved ones, with my relationships. I don't think the light bulb goes off as much in other industries for self growth. Mm-hmm.
How do you stay positive and motivated with everything currently going on in the world right now?
It can be hard. I think you got to appreciate the little things. That's what life's ultimately about. And happiness is a state of mind. I love the movie Boyhood because it was a very anticlimactic movie and there was hardly even acts involved in that script. But it was just a series of events and it's your choice to choose how you react to those events. And it's been hard. We've lost some very good friends. And I do think the mental part of this virus has been a killer that's been the real killer. I think we're past 500,000 people that the virus has physically killed. So there's obviously that fallout, but I think that the mental fallout has affected, there's no telling what, 50 million people. It's been tough to see people that struggled with mental illness and depression lose their battles because ultimately of this isolation and this virus, which the isolation was necessary. I would never argue that, but it's been hard to see that downfall and people not being able to climb out of it. So I'm sorry, what was the exact question? Was it the hardest thing about this time of the world, or how am I handling it?
How do you sort of keep yourself happy and keep yourself motivated and positive?
Right. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, seeing that is a real wake up call when people do lose those battles. We lost a very good friend last year who was 33 years old. Yeah, really tough since I was a kid. And I know other communities within the van community. I built a van and I live out of it. Sorry. Yeah, that was random.
No, love it.
And so that's a very niche community that lost someone that I did not know this woman, but she really left an impact in my life because it doesn't matter what someone looks like. It doesn't matter how grand their life seems. There's no correlation between that and chronic deep depression. That's a demon that crawls in someone's brain and they can't get out. And then they do something that if they were alive to talk about it would horribly regret. I do believe that is what depression is. And so it's not them, it's a disease that's within them. And so I think those are wake-up calls to just be so grateful for every little darn thing. There's so many things to be grateful for, like getting up and having a cup of coffee. It makes me so happy. So, that's probably my biggest takeaway of this period, but also just taking a deep breath and getting to go back home to Texas more often and be with my parents because that won't be forever. So I'm really grateful for that time that I can, takes a lot more work to put things on tape constantly for auditions, but it's worth it when I get to see my family more. So that's been a great takeaway. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Holland. This was
no worries. Thanks so much for your time.